On this episode, we discuss what Bangkok offers if you move here as a young punk versus what it offers if you move here as an old senior like us.
So if you've ever wondered if you moved or will move to Thailand at the right time in your life, you'll dig this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 to escape the ridiculous politics in Canada. And, well, maybe I need to go somewhere else.
And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract almost 23 years ago. Fell in love with trying to figure out what Thai-style democracy actually is. And I'm still trying, so I never left.
It's Thai-ness. It's indecipherable. It's unexplainable.
It's a riddle.
It's a je ne sais quoi.
It's a riddle wrapped in an enigma.
It's right. Put in a trunk and sunk to the bottom of the ocean.
That's right. Okay, we want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Craig, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about the youngest kid on the social media block, Threads, and how it compares to Twitter for keeping on top of Thai news, a short double pricing debate with input from our friends in Rome, comments on Burger King's new cheeseburger monstrosity, and of course, updates on the quickly evolving election or non-election of the new prime minister. To learn how to become a patron, click the support button at the top of our website.
Yeah, Big Daddy. And as always, if you have a comment, a show idea, or just want to say hi, head to BangkokPodcast.com and click the little microphone button on the bottom right to leave us a voicemail that we will play on the show. Also, apologies for my scratchy voice, getting over another cold. My bloodline is weak, Ed. I always get colds. I'm very susceptible to these things, and no one in my house gets them except me.
I disagree, man. You're beastly. You're manly. You're a robust dude.
The big things can't take me down. It's just the tiny little bugs get me. All right, on this episode, we are stepping proudly into our role as elder Farang statesmen and applying our combined 44-ish years of life in Bangkok to ponder the question of what time in your life is the best time in your life to relocate to Thailand. Now, obviously, there's no single answer to this very subjective question, but I think it's fair to say that moving here at 25 is going to be a much different experience than moving here at 45. But Ed and I got to chatting about which time is the quote-unquote best time. That is, when can you expect to get the most Bangkok bang for your Farang buck? And what does Thailand offer the youths that it doesn't offer the elders, and vice versa? So Ed, this is a really interesting question. You and I were talking about it earlier, and like I said, I don't think there's any one answer, but we've got a lot of experience here. We've seen a lot of people come and go. We came here as young bucks. We are now old men. So I think we've got some good insight to share. What do you think about this?
I agree. I like this question. I think we have to be clear, whatever age you show up in Thailand, you're going to make do. It's either going to work or not work. So I think people could come at any age and either like it or not like it. It is quite subjective, but I don't know. I feel like I do have some insight on this topic. So I'm just going to, I don't have any, my thoughts are not really in order, but I came in my early 30s and I loved it straight away, but especially my first 5 years here were pretty wild and chaotic, and it was exciting. I had never really, I had barely left the United States before I moved here, and I've mentioned before on the show that I'm kind of glad I didn't come in my 20s because, I mean, I barely had enough self-control as like a 33, 34-year-old. I barely had enough self-control to like keep my shit together and not ruin my life and not do anything really stupid. Like I didn't do anything really stupid. For me, I'm kind of glad I didn't come in my 20s. Like for me, I needed the maturity. I would say Thailand is a dangerous place for an immature young man. What do you think?
I think that's a very good assessment. An immature young man with no guardrails, a little bit of money, you can get into a lot of trouble real quick. You can also not get into a lot of trouble, but if you've got no experience with other cultures and traveling overseas and how things work, you might be in for a bit of a rough ride and or a very steep learning curve.
That's right. I mean, and I think I've known many people who've come and gone within 6 months or 1 year or 2 years for various reasons. Some like not so good, like they get into trouble or something really bad happens and they have to pull the ripcord. Now, I want to say this. I think if you can manage not to do anything really stupid or crazy, then your 20s would be pretty damn exciting here. Like, I think it's one of those things that is the risk reward thing. So, and you and I have friends who came in their 20s and who made it, survived. And man, if you're here, to me, your 20s are a time for exploration and experimentation. I think it's a time where most people have kind of finished school, at least for a while, and you're kind of on your own. You're becoming an adult. And no one typically expects too much of you in your 20s. You're kind of expected to maybe fail, try this job, try that job, move here, move there. At least, I don't know, maybe this is an American standpoint, but this is kind of a common way to view your 20s, like at least as an American. It's a time to try things, and Thailand is a great place to try things as long as you cannot do anything. You don't do anything really stupid.
Well, it's funny you say that because you're describing me. I came here when I was 26.
Okay.
And I did not, how shall I put it delicately, I did not take advantage of some of the things in Bangkok that a lot of my friends took advantage of when they first got here. I was very sort of straight-laced, some would almost say shy. And I was, for my 22 years here, I just actually this month, Ed, I've passed 22 years.
Wow.
I have had 5 girlfriends.
Which actually is a low number for 22. For 22 years, a Western guy in Thailand, that's actually a low number.
It's insanely, like, it's almost embarrassingly low. Like, some people look at me derisively, like, what a loser.
You've only dated 5 women?
Yeah. If you'd gone back when I was 18 and told me I would have like 5 girlfriends, I'd be like, oh my God, my prayers have been answered. That's amazing. But, I was always in a committed long-term relationship. So I never really got the wild side of things here. It's never really appealed to me anyway.
Well, that's good.
But I didn't know anything about anything in Thailand. I didn't know anything about how the culture worked. I didn't know how international relations worked. I was just basically making it up as I went. And you came over here with a job
I did
to go to, so at least you had something to like focus on.
True that.
I came over here as a tourist and decided to stay, and then had to get a job when I ran out of money. So I was a little bit untethered for a while. I didn't do anything crazy, but I also had no idea what the hell was going on.
Well, you honestly, you're an interesting dude because you have a very fun-loving personality. Like you're a fun guy, but you're actually not wild. You're not wild. You're not a huge drinker. You're not into drugs, not even into getting high. And you're not a like, let's stay out till 6 a.m. and like rip the sky off the world. Like that's just not, but you're very fun, but you're actually fun. Like I would not describe you as shy, and you like to go out. You're a connector, but maybe that's a good way to put it. You're fun, but you're not wild.
I'm the amusing designated driver. Every friend group has.
That's good. So in that way, you were kind of mature enough to handle it in your 20s, and you made it through. And so in that way, my take is your 20s could be your best time as long as like you have some self-restraint and you don't do anything too stupid. I personally, and this might be weird to say since I'm in academia and I teach, I think coming to Thailand for university is not a great idea unless you have some very specific reason to be here. And like everyone's situation is different. I just think, it's literally my job to maintain academic standards at my university, and I do my best to do that. But the bottom line is, if you want a world-class, educational experience, I don't think this is the best place to be. Like I think in Asia, you have to go to Singapore, or maybe possibly a place, like Tokyo or Seoul or something like that. So, and then to me, man, if I came in college I mean, I did wild enough things in college in the States that I'm
in Cleveland.
Actually, well, I was in college in Michigan, but
okay.
Honestly, I'm really glad I didn't come here as a young guy. I'm really, really glad I did not. Yeah, I would say like college, not a good time to come here. And I'm just generalizing. 20s could be awesome if you could manage not to do anything too crazy.
Yeah, I think we've all known people who have come here in their 20s or even in the 30s, actually early 30s. And if you
go off the rails, you go off the rails.
Yeah, and they've had that sort of addictive personality, and they're just, they've been sheltered their whole life, and this is their first time heading out, and they can quickly turn to the dark side. And when they leave, if they leave, they usually leave in not the greatest shape. And
great. I mean, I've got many stories of people who had bad experiences or screwed something up and
right.
had to leave. Now I'm going to say something else, and this might be a little bit controversial. I personally don't think so. I came in my early 30s. I don't think that's the best time for most people, unless you have a specific career advantage to be here. And I don't want to sound like someone who's just bitching and moaning, but you and I have talked about this before. I don't think Thailand is a great place for foreigners to come and try to make bank. Like, there's exceptions, some people do come here to really make money, but it's pretty rare, man. I mean, we've talked before about the relative differences between salaries and pay scales. Like, if you've got, if you're like a doctor or a lawyer or like a well-educated engineer, or you've already got an MBA, I don't think you're going to come here and make more money than you would make back in the States or in Canada or anywhere else. Like, and I'll die on this hill. This is not a great place to come to make money in general.
Right. A thought just occurred to me that it's sort of like being an actor. If you come here in your 30s to work, it's sort of like a mid-level job. If you're being an actor, you're like, I'm going to be an actor, I'm going to do it. And you're like, well, all right, you'll probably sort of settle in the middle and make enough money to live and maybe have a little bit of fun doing it. But the chances of you breaking out and becoming Brad Pitt or Pedro Pascal is pretty slim.
That's why people go to LA or New York. If you want to be an actor, you go to LA or New York.
Right. And I have known people over here who have come to start up like import-export businesses or something like that, rubber businesses or construction businesses. They made a ton of money.
Of course, you can do it.
Few and far between.
Yeah, you can do it. I teach American studies, and so I discuss this with my students all the time. I mean, if your goal really is, I just want to be somewhere where just to maximize my chances to make money, you got to go to the States, or you got to go to a big city. You got to go to Tokyo, Seoul, Oslo, Paris. If that is your thing, if you want like a high-powered career, in most cases, I don't think Thailand's the place to be. And so I think a lot of people in their 30s and 40s, and maybe into their 50s, they really need to make money. Like, they're saving for retirement, or they're taking care of a family. So if you can manage to be here and make Western money, then okay, more power to you if you can work that. But I think that's pretty rough. However, we all know that Thailand's a popular place to retire to. So what's your take on just, is this a good place to come, let's say 65 and up, when you're done working? What's your take?
Yeah, this is an interesting question, and I do have some insight into this because for various reasons. But I mean, if you go back and listen to season 5, episode 4, we actually did a show on this. I recorded an interview with my buddy Johnny Thoits, the Colonel.
Right, I remember this. Yep.
Yeah, he was talking about being retired here, and actually, I was just talking to one of our patrons the other day on email, Davide, about this, and we were going back and forth about the pros and cons of retiring here. So I think it's an interesting question. A lot of people retire here because the price of living is cheap. The medical care is good if you can afford it, and it's warm. So that's really good for some people. But my uncle lives here, and he's living on his very modest pension, and he's doing okay. But my mom was also thinking of moving here years ago, and I kind of talked her out of it because I know her, and I'm like, look, Mom, you don't like hot weather. Bangkok is
right, sure,
obscenely, uncomfortably hot sometimes. You would hate it.
Right.
You also really, really love Christmas and the Western culture about those types of holidays. That doesn't exist here unless you go to the mall, and it's kind of cheesy. If she come over here, she'd be with her husband, who is also Canadian, but when you're old and you can't speak Thai and you don't have someone to lean on to speak Thai for you,
sure,
it kind of be really isolating and,
right.
A little bit difficult.
I think you and I are on the same page. I think Thailand is an okay place to retire. Like you said, the weather is at least okay, although it can be too hot. Medical care is good, certainly for the money. But I'm with you. I don't think this is a great place to retire for most people. Obviously, it depends on what kind of retirement you want. I mean, if you want something just genuinely just relaxing and you just want like a beautiful view of the beach, of course that can work for you. Right. But we've talked before about
it's also expensive.
Well, we've talked before about how the laws are not super friendly to retirees. I mean, it's doable, but compared to other countries, the laws are not super friendly. The visa rules are not great. Like you said, there's a massive language barrier, and I think, like at that age, you're missing out on some of the energy and excitement of Bangkok or Thailand, which is what makes it really special. Like this is why coming when you're young, you have this advantage because you have the energy that can match the chaos. So but if you want like peace and order and stability and normalcy, like most retirees want, you can get it here. Especially if you have the money to pay to live in certain locations like retirement communities. Yeah,
you're talking about Bangkok.
Yeah, so I just wouldn't put this like high on the list. I wouldn't we've talked before about there's a lack of cultural events, shows and things like that, that maybe retired people might want to do. So I don't know. I consider this like an okay place to retire, but certainly nothing special.
Well, my uncle lives in Chiang Rai, and the pace of life there is much slower and quieter than Bangkok, and it suits him well. But I should also say he's also pondering, hemming and hawing about moving back to Canada now as he gets older. And he wants to be back in Canada because the healthcare there is much better, and he can't really afford very good healthcare here.
Right.
So that's another consideration. The retirement visa here, you got to have 800,000 baht in the bank.
Right.
When my mom was thinking of moving here, she's like, I just want to be close to a beach and close to you. And she was looking on the map and she goes, what about Pattaya? I was like, there's no way you're moving to Pattaya. Nope, not in a million years. I'm not letting you move there. So it's a thing. But you're right, though. It does take a certain, if you're talking about Bangkok, it does take a certain amount of energy and elasticity to parse the energy of the city.
That's right. That's right.
Which a lot of older people don't have or don't want. But it is totally possible to be here when you're older and totally enjoy it. Like for you, when you think about all the types of people you've seen, the young people, the young punks, the middle-aged people, the older people, who is most able to handle it? Who are the happiest of them all?
It's a good question. I got to be honest, some of the happiest people I've met here, and this is a pretty unique situation, but over the years I've met, probably 3 or 4 guys that are kind of 50-ish, so they're not quite ready to retire, but older guys. But these are guys who made money back home. So these are guys who are financially comfortable. One guy in particular, I know, he just made a lot of money in the 90s, like in the tech boom. But these are guys who had families, raised families, have kids. Usually they're either in college or post-college, and then something happened to their marriage. So these are single guys with money in their 50s, but they've already had a family, they have kids, so they're not looking for that. So it's another situation here. If you're coming to Thailand and you want to meet someone or start a family or have kids, that's a whole different life, as you know.
Right.
But if you're coming here, some people, they get out of college and they get married and they start a family. Like a lot of people do that in their 20s. They don't kick around, they don't experiment, they get on with their life and they follow that path. And so if you kind of succeed at that path and then maybe something happens to your marriage, so I got to be honest, these guys are pretty damn happy. So they're like, for them, it's like a second, not childhood, but they're single again in their 50s and they have money and they're in Thailand, but they don't have to worry about, they don't want another wife and they don't want more kids. So that, if you really want the truth, that's the best situation to be in, like to come to Thailand.
What's the opposite of a midlife crisis? What's the opposite of crisis? A midlife.
It's like a midlife a midlife epiphany, a midlife,
Epiphany, right.
a midlife peak. Those guys are peaking. They're living their best lives.
They're living the life. Well, I think, and then, of course, Thailand doesn't have to be Thailand. They could probably go to any country and be pretty happy with that level of comfort. But Thailand.
But in particular, this is a good place to be. I think in that
situation. It is. And of course, we're missing the the 40 or 50-year-old guys who come over here and they get hired on those fat expat packages. They're making $500,000 baht a month. God, what I could do with that kind of money. And they've got a car and a driver and a condo, and their kids go to the best school, all paid for by the company.
Sure,
that's a pretty unique situation. But those people are quite common here as well. And again, they're pretty set, and they'd be probably pretty happy anywhere. But it's very easy to enjoy Thailand and be very happy here.
Those types of people, the kind of corporate package people, I still think they're not getting the true Bangkok experience, because the bottom line is they're tied down with a serious job and usually family and kids, and the bottom line is their life would pretty much be the same thing. And those guys often get, and girls, women too, they get moved around. So then they go to Osaka, then they go to wherever, Costa Rica, and it's the same life. It's just the corporate life, and they're managing a factory or doing whatever, and it's a good life. They make good money. It's a good life, but I think it's the same wherever they go. So they're not getting the real Bangkok experience.
That's interesting, because I also have met people like that who are on these fat expat packages, and they don't eat Thai food. They don't explore Bangkok. They don't get out. They don't learn the language. And they just live in this very rarefied elite expat bubble, and they're not here for Thailand. They're here to work.
That's right. And often, like you said, they're raising families, and that is you and I have talked a lot about breaking out of the expat bubble, and those types of people they're the least likely to do it, because a lot of times they're only here for 2 years or 4 years. That's how those corporate assignments usually work. It's not a lifetime thing. So for them, they're not as motivated to break out of the bubble, and so in that case, they don't get the true Thai experience, the true Bangkok experience.
That's an interesting one, too. Now, all of this conversation that we've had so far is all about money, career advancement, success. That's one measure of like enjoying your life, of success. But what about if you're not looking for money, if you're not looking to make a ton of bank, if you're just looking for a really fun experience, a really deep cultural experience, something new, something interesting, then I think it flips the script a little bit. Then I think Thailand is a very good place to move, no matter what age you are.
Yeah, of course. Like we said, it just depends on your circumstance. Like you could be 35 and in between jobs with money in the bank, and you just want to have an adventure. So as long as you're open to adventure, I think this is a great place to come, for sure. Like at any age, and certainly there are people who are retired in the sense that they're not working anymore, but they still like to have fun and like to go out and want to get off the beaten path. So, like we said at the start, I think you can make Thailand work at any age. I still think there are differences, though. It's like, and I'm just glad I didn't come here when I was too young. Thank God.
Yeah. Would you, if you could do it all over again, would you rather spend a few more years in the States and then come over here when you were slightly older and wiser?
It's a good question. I mean, like I said, I was in my early 30s. So for me, I might have come at the perfect time, because I was still young enough that and I hadn't traveled much, really at all. And so I still had that kind of wide-eyed, oh my God, this is unbelievable experience. Right. But I had enough age and maturity that I didn't get too crazy. So for me, I probably came at the best time. And I also, I needed to make money, but I was basically teaching. And so I knew I wasn't really, quote unquote, trying to get rich. So I had kind of fairly low expectations for how much money I was going to make. So for me, it kind of worked out. It depends on why you come here. If you come here in your 30s and you kind of already have a job and you know how much you're going to make and you're happy with it, then that's great.
Yeah, I'm really glad I came when I did, because I was just, looking back on it now, I was just circling the drain, as I put it, to that sort of typical Western lifestyle, the white picket fence, the wife, the kids, the job that I hate, and I just was spinning my wheels back where I was. And I'm really glad I got out of it, even though at the time I didn't know. And I probably should have been a bit more older and wiser to really understand the gravity of the situation. Like, when I ran out of money here and had to get a job, like, I was out of money, dude. Like, I have $50 in the world to my name. And nowhere to go and no resources to fall back on. So I probably should have been a lot more worried than I was. So in that way, sort of that youthful ignorance really helped buoy me a little bit. And I was much more able to handle the, I probably should have been more worried than I was. But
in a way, that was kind of a good foolishness, because it like, you were in a situation that you probably should not have been in, like if you had made better decisions. But the bottom line is, you reacted well. Like, you worked your way out of it. You got a job. You switched different jobs, and you worked your way out of it. So it worked out.
Worked out pretty well. Pretty well.
I think so. I mean, think of this. You are the host of the most popular English language podcast in all of Thailand.
Of all 3 English language podcasts in Thailand,
we are the most popular.
It might be down to 2 now. I'm not sure. Anyway, listeners, hey, tell us your story. We'd like to hear, if you've been here a long time, how old were you when you got here? And if you would have changed it, would you have come here when you were older or younger?
Yeah, I have heard
what did you
people.
do wrong?
Yeah,
what did you do right?
Right. Yeah, I'm curious if people wish they would have come here at a different time. I think that's the issue.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I came here when I did. I'm glad things worked out the way they did. Like you said, it doesn't matter what age you come here. You're going to figure it out. Most of the time. Most people figure it out and make it work to their advantage. But it's an interesting question, and there's no single answer, but I think it's something that everyone should think about if they're going to be planning on coming here for any amount of time.
For sure.
All right, let's get into some love, loathe, or live with, where one of us picks a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we discuss to decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept as something that we just have to learn to live with no matter how we feel about it. So, Ed, I'm going to ask you a question, and I think we've maybe done this in previous seasons, even going back as far as Evo, but I'm not sure. I don't remember, so I'm going to do it again. What do you think about when you get on the phone with someone, a Thai operator for some company, and you have to spell out a word, and you go, yes, it's, the word is love. And she goes, okay, L is in leopard, O is in Ophelia, V is in Vancouver. You're like, no, that's not the real agreed upon language of that we're supposed to use. It's supposed to be, for once, I just like to hear someone say back to me, yeah, Lima, Oscar, Victor, Echo. And yes, that's the semaphore alphabet. That's what we're
It's
doing.
A really interesting question, because as a country that's trying to improve its English language instruction, they should learn that standard thing. That's actually a useful thing that, I mean, I don't know if it's used in every country, but if what you want is your citizens to be kind of world literate, that should be part of the curriculum. That should just be in every second grader's, like phonics book, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe I'm just super anal about it, because I was in Navy cadets when I was a kid, and they drilled that stuff into you pretty hardcore. So
I see.
Anyway, I'm a live with, but it does irk me.
Agreed.
Nice.
Alrighty, a final thanks to our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
True that. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. You can send us a voicemail through our website that will feature on the show. I don't Twitter anymore, as we talked about in our bonus show, and I'm on Threads now. You can find me at BKK Greg on Threads, or at bkkgreg@poorlyrendered.com on Mastodon, although I'm leaning towards Threads a bit more these days, but we'll see how things go. So thanks for listening, everyone. Take it easy out there, and I will see you back here next week.
No doubt.